Hey, welcome to the Digitally Overwhelmed podcast. I'm Cynthia, your host, and I run Digital Bloom IQ, where I help health and wellness businesses get found in Google and heal more of the world. This is episode 207 of the podcast, and today I get to interview Robyn of the Hormone Diva, all about her behind-the-scenes online marketing. I was wanting to interview several health and wellness businesses because I feel like so many times when we're running our businesses, even when we have a team or if we're a solopreneur, it can be hard to know, am I doing this right? Or how is this, compared to the industry? Is there some area that I could improve things, especially around our websites and our social media marketing and all our marketing, really? And so I wanted to bring a business owner who I really admire how she does things, how she makes decisions, and how it's totally safe and normal to make pivots in how you market yourself and how you market your business. So this interview is with Robyn. Like I mentioned, we get into just some big changes that she's made in the last 6 months around her own marketing, how she's decided to focus on the areas of her marketing that really do feel good and that, she trusts that are just a good fit for her. And we get also into a little bit of the nitty-gritty of what she's actually doing in the back end. So I hope that you find this interview helpful and it gives you some ideas on what changes you want to make in your own marketing or what areas you want to reconsider or take a look at, and just make sure it feels good. Marketing gets to feel good. It gets to feel fun and, inspiring. Maybe not all the time, but most of the time is good. And before we dive into this conversation with Robyn, I did want to let you know that the SEO Season Society is officially launched. I am so excited, so proud. It's been a work in progress, but I'm really passionate about it because I feel like there's been a lot of clients who have asked me for SEO guidance, as well as kind of understanding some of the SEO principles that are going to really get them results. So this isn't the course, this isn't like the SEO course, because I'm not teaching you my full step methodology, but instead giving you a framework to build out consistent content and make changes on your website that are strategically aligned with keywords that I help you select, and that we make sure that you're actually targeting in the next 3 to 6 months of time. So if you want more information, you can go to my site, digitalbloomiq.com, and under services, the first option is SEO Season Society. That will take you to the sales page. I'm currently running a early bird pricing until October 6th. And also a very special bonus around Google Analytics to track your conversion metrics, which is kind of fun. I've never done anything like that. But yeah, if you have any questions, you can email my team at support@digitalbloomiq.com. We'll answer. And there is actually an application process because this is a pretty in-depth service. We look at your business, we look at your content keywords, and we build a plan for you for quarterly basis. I want to make sure that you're going to get the most out of the service. And so there is a short, medium to short application form on that sales page. So basically how it works is you apply, review the application. We verify that you're at the stage where this service is relevant to you and you're going to get the results that we are promising. And if for whatever reason we don't feel it's a good fit, we'll give you other next steps to look at. But once that goes through, you confirm the payment plan you want to go to, and you get started. And yeah, it's just, I'm so excited. It's something I've been just cooking up for the last few weeks that I think you guys who have been listening to the podcast have been like, okay, come on, Cynthia, already. So yeah, anyway, I hope that you enjoy this conversation with Robyn. Hey, Robyn.
Hey, Cynthia.
How's it going? How are you doing today?
Good. I'm so excited to be here and have this chat.
Yeah. So I've been thinking of bringing you on the podcast for a while because, well, just so the audience knows, I've actually been working with Robyn. I've hired her and I've taken some of her courses, and I love what she's doing. I think it's so important. And actually, I've been on your podcast, so that's kind of funny.
Mhm.
Um, And I wanted to bring you on here today because I feel like a lot of the times from, seeing someone's business from the external side, or, seeing their marketing and stuff, it's very different than actually, seeing the decisions that happen in the back end. And so sometimes it can be inspiring to see that, it's not all like, some things are organized, and at least in my experience, some things are kind of messy, and that's okay. And it's just like you go with it and you find your own consistency. So anyway, I wanted to, share that with the people listening so that they can get inspired. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell them about the Hormone Diva?
Yeah, absolutely. So my work is as a holistic nutritionist, and it was really my own personal journey with health stuff that led me into this. I always thought I was going to be just a generalist, but then I came off birth control, ended up being diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, and not wanting to go down the conventional road of treatment, which isn't really treatment, as you well know. It's much a band-aid. Really jump started my passion for helping women do the same. And so now I coach women with all different kinds of hormonal imbalances to get their menstrual cycles working properly and having everything feeling really good. And I've been doing it for seven-ish years now. So it's been a wonderful journey.
Oh, same as me. I'm at 7. I think I'm getting, I have to check. I think this month the business turns 8 or maybe 7. Anyway, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. Yeah. And like I hinted at, uh, you know, your marketing from the outside, you're very active on different channels and you have different things going on, and you recently relaunched your website. So why don't you like go ahead and tell us, maybe in the last, 6 months to a year, or even going a little further, like how has that journey been with your marketing? And obviously there's like a lot you could say, but maybe just like the high level decisions that were made. Where did you decide to focus and why? You launched your podcast fairly recently as well. I'm just curious to hear, like, yeah, where have you been focusing on and making decisions on?
For sure. So I think in the last year, the biggest thing that has changed is that I become more self-directed in the things that I do and the things that I offer. I did all the typical business coaches and programs in the first years of my business, and they all have a very similar way of getting things. Like you have to have a perfect funnel and a perfect website, and you need to use Facebook ads, and you have to hustle, hustle, hustle. It's a very masculine view of running a business. And I always found, although I had success, in my launches and with my programs, that I was feeling very burnt out after. And then I would not be inspired for a long time because I was literally like nursing myself back to health because I was so burnt out from doing that.
Right.
And it was literally about a year ago now, early last fall, that I discovered human design. And that's something that you and I have been talking about too. But human design was kind of like just a huge permission slip for me to take a look, like a really like radically honest look at my business and what was going on and what I was offering and how I felt about it. And I realized that a lot of the things that I was offering weren't feeling aligned with me anymore. Not that there was anything wrong with them. All the people who went through them got a lot of success. I really loved offering those things when I did, but I just came to this point where I was like, this is not what I want to do anymore. This is not the kind of things that I want to offer anymore. And so being able to dive into my own human design and what that means for managing my energy, which is super important as an entrepreneur, and what it means for what I offer and how I offer it and when I offer it, has been just absolutely incredible. In the last year, I've literally gotten rid of every single thing that I used to offer except for my private coaching that has stayed steady. But all other programs and services and other things have been totally just taken off the table. And now I'm in a place where I'm shifting into creating new things. And so it's a really exciting time, but it also feels much more like I'm trusting myself, right? I'm not always hoping that the coach or the whatever is going to tell me exactly what I need to do. I know how to listen to myself. I know what works best for me. And I know that I can follow the things that are really exciting me, and I can offer those, and that they'll be really successful because other people are picking up on that energy as well.
I love that. And that's something, yeah, it feels like there's so many great strategies and processes. And like you said, those are great. But if you're not, really believing yourself through these, or coming back and saying, is this what I really want to do? And that's hard to do at the beginning because, at least for me, I found like I was just discovering, oh, I don't even know what I want to do.
Yeah.
Or like, I think it's a little different, but I think that could happen from the very beginning, just like finding your way and being like, no, I'm not going to just blindly follow something because someone is promising me something, like some sort of success. I'm going to really tap in and be like, does this feel good? And does the journey feel good? Because at the end of the day, we're the ones, doing a lot of the work, at least up front, and then handing off to a team. But so that's like kind of the inner world. So on the external, you said all your, you closed down some of your offerings, and you're kind of, sounds like you're starting with kind of a cleaner slate. And in terms of your marketing, so, your podcast, your website, you do Instagram. I don't know, I'm not aware if you do anything else, but how do you feel that decision has impacted other areas or the marketing areas of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So my growth this year has been entirely organic. And I feel like in letting go of the things that weren't working for me anymore, it kind of put me in this empty space or this void where I was really able to envision what I wanted and the avenues that I was going to use to get it. So instead of doing huge Facebook focus, including ads, I shut down a Facebook group that had over 5,000 people in it because it just wasn't for me anymore. I'm focusing solely pretty much now in terms of social on Instagram because I have a lot more fun there, right? And so because I'm having fun, then I get the engagement that I want. And then the podcast, which I launched in May of this year, I had been wanting to do for years and always put off because I never felt like I was ready for it or I was expert enough or like whatever. But this year I was like, I have to go with what feels good for me.
Yeah.
And being able to talk, just like, right, hosting a podcast, it's a great platform to go and to speak about the things that you're really excited about, also to connect with other people if you have guests. And it's been a wonderful experience doing that because it's not, I mean, obviously we're business owners, so of course it's about like making money and stuff like that, but it's also about like connecting with people via my message. And when I receive emails and DMs and all of those kinds of things of women who have listened and they're like, thank you, like I feel less alone, I feel less abnormal, because of what I've heard you or your guest talk about on the show. That's, why I do it. And that's what makes me really excited about it. And so that's been the marketing effort this year. Like, what is truly the message that I want to get across? And what are the platforms that I'm having the most fun doing it on? And part of that was shifting the website this year for sure. It just wasn't feeling aligned. Like there was a lot of bitterness for me around my previous website and what it was doing or not doing for me, I should say. And so updating it so that it was looking more like I wanted it to look, so that it was easier for people who are visiting to navigate it and to know what I'm all about and to find out about my services or see the podcast or blog posts. And so now I don't have that source of like tension anymore because it feels really good. And that's how I know that I'm moving in the right direction.
I love that. Oh yeah. I mean, people can tell when you're doing something and you're bored or you're just not, like, it doesn't come through the same way. And I say this to all my clients, like if you're gonna really go into, go all in, or just really commit to a marketing platform, whichever it may be, make sure, you're on board, right? Don't just do it because someone told you to. Like that comes up a lot with Facebook ads. I'm not saying it's always like this, but it sometimes does feel like this desperate thing with some people. And I've, sometimes done that where I'm like running a campaign and I'm like, oh, I just need, an email subscriber. But it's almost like less is more in some sense, like a sense, right? Like if you're doing a really good job with your podcast and that's turning into like on your website, that turns into kind of like blog posts for each episode, that's already a lot. And people get so much value from that. And then in the future, if you want to add out something else, the base of that is already there and it's like good quality.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely a lot of experimentation. Like you were saying before about how, really leaning into the things that we want to do as individuals, as entrepreneurs. At first we can't maybe do it because we don't know. We haven't tried things. We don't have the experience. And so we do need to have people say, okay, so here's some strategies that worked for me and here's how I coach, and like you learn about those things and you try. And like I said before, it's not that those things didn't work for me. I would get good ROI on Facebook ads and stuff like that, but it just wasn't feeling the way that I wanted it to feel. And it wasn't quite attracting the type of person that I wanted most of the time. It was attracting lots of people, don't get me wrong, but not quite what I am looking for. And I just found, this year that I just really wanted to let go of Facebook kind of as a whole. The only stuff that happens on Facebook now is whatever Instagram then cross posts, when I post on Instagram over to my Facebook page. But it's just wherever I'm having most fun. And right now that is Instagram, and that's the podcast. And stuff from the podcast gets put on the website. And so it's just been a really nice little package.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think what happens in the beginning is we're trying different things, but I don't know about you, but I look back and I have memories in the beginning where I like intuitively did something and then I had a coach or well-intentioned or like a friend or someone be like, oh, no, you should do it this way. And then I would switch, but my first gut like decision was actually really good. And now I've gone back. Like, I don't know, have you found that? Like, you're like, oh, I actually made the right decision the first time. I just doubted myself and I wanted that, I don't know, that external validation.
Totally. Right. And then like in my experience, I lost trust in myself in that process, right? Because it's like you're constantly second guessing your own ideas. And then, if you're working with a coach for a set period of time and then that's over, and then you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Because I don't have someone telling me what I need to be doing. And so taking like radical responsibility for the choices that I'm making and doing the things that I feel are best for me, even if it feels scary at the time, has really been an exercise in like trusting myself as a business owner as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the mark of a good coach is the one who's like strengthening your own decision making and your own intuition and your own trust, right? And confidence in yourself, which is really a muscle. Because there's so many voices and there's so many strategies. And again, these are all great, but you can't do them all at once and not all of them are going to work for you. So you have to like start picking and really, again, committing. And I think the experimentation thing is like ongoing, like even people who, whatever, like you have established business, you're profitable, you're still experimenting with new things because we know digital marketing is changing and so is adapting. And that's kind of the exciting part, right? But I think it's having that mix of like, this is what I'm going to commit to. This is what I feel strong in. And I'm going to really, do this. And then I'm experimenting with these other things and I'm doing them in a way. I always talk about like controlled experiments. So things that you're doing for at least a certain amount of time and you're looking at the results and you're saying, okay, does this feel good? First of all, second, am I getting clients from this? Am I getting, the results that I want? And I feel like a lot of this also comes down to like defining your own version of success, right? And your like lifestyle. I think that's a big part of what you're saying too, is like, you weren't having fun before. And so you had to go back and be like, okay, well, what's fun? And like, what do I want to be doing? Because that's apart from the profitability and running a successful business, we get to define what success is.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think, for me, like I said earlier, human design has been big in this for me because it allows me to, like, the more that I know myself, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever, the better I'm able to make decisions and also show up in my business. And so it's really critical for me to, have those experiences and have done all that trial and error, but also know like what is best for me at my core, and trusting that that's going to get me where I want to go. And it has this wonderful ripple effect, I find, into all other areas of my life as well, and into my clients too. And so, for me right now, this just feels like the perfect direction, like the combination of the podcast and that going to the website and Instagram. And I should also mention, I do have an email list and I do email marketing as well. And
Yes.
like, this just feels like a really good combination that feels easy for me. And it feels like the right direction. And so, that's what we focus on now.
I love that you gave yourself permission to like stop and kind of really view that, because so many people just like keep going and going and they're like miserable, but they don't understand why. And I think that's totally normal. It's almost like we have to normalize that, like what you did at the beginning or what you did, whatever, like 2 years in or 6 months in is never, it's okay if it's different than what you're doing now. And it's okay to, change at the end of the day and make it work for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know you probably can't give away too much, but what are your plans for the next kind of 6 months? Like what are maybe some things that you're like cooking up? I know the podcast is going strong, so you're gonna keep going with that, but do you have anything else that you're kind of like playing around with in terms of your marketing and offers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think I'll always keep private coaching because I love connecting one-on-one with women. I think it might change. I might change the structure of it a little bit here and there. But one of the biggest things recently has been giving myself lots of time and space to allow ideas or downloads or whatever you want to call them to come in for what is going to come next. And so I have two things coming down the pipeline right now. They're totally different than anything I've offered before. They're totally different than any course or program has told me how I'm supposed to or how I should be structuring and offering. And so I'm really excited about it because it's just like I've had these ideas. I really feel like there's a lot of women out there who need the support within these two offerings that I'm working on. And I'm going to structure them the way that I want to, basically. Like one of them right now, that's going to be coming out before the end of the year, I'm calling the ovulation equation. And it's going to be a really short 7-day program where we literally talk about like what are the factors involved, because I help women with menstrual cycles, right? What are the factors involved in ovulation? Like here's some like clear cut stuff for you to understand, the physiology of what's going on in your body, as well as, the different factors that you can do to support yourself so that you have healthy ovulation, whether you're trying to conceive, whether you have irregular or absent cycles, or like whatever else might be going on in your body. That's like such a important piece of women's health in general, like to have a healthy ovulation.
Yeah.
So the ovulation equation is coming, and then connection is going to be coming later on, which is helping women connect to all the phases of their menstrual cycle, or the moon if they don't cycle. So there's lots of fun stuff coming that I'm really excited about. And like I said, different than what I've been taught to create. And so it's really like letting loose that creativity, which feels really, really fun right now.
I love that. Yeah. Again, I feel like at the beginning of my business, I would have loved someone teaching me just getting quiet. And well, I think I was doing it naturally to some extent, but again, a lot of the times I was looking just for that external like validation of like, yeah,
Yes.
you're doing it right or whatever.
Yeah.
And just to be able to just trust your own intuition and doing things that no one's done before, that takes guts and it takes, but I don't know. I guess it's like, well, but why wouldn't you share that if that's like called like on your heart, right? And you can like trust that when you share it, that's going to connect seamlessly into the rest of your business and it's going to sell how you want it to sell. And it's almost like you don't need to know all the moving parts. You can just let it happen
Mhm.
and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I don't think probably in the first 4 years at least of my business that I allowed myself time and space to think of what I would want to offer. It was like I had these business coaches that were, for health and wellness businesses only. And so they're like, look, this is what we see that sells, or what sold for me back when I was doing this. And so that's what I did. And then, like I said before, getting to that place of burnout and just frustration and being like, yeah, those things were successful. I enjoyed them to a certain degree, and I was certainly helping people. And, that's always my main goal, but it wasn't really touching on the things that were the closest to my heart. And so now, that's really, I guess, heart-centered is kind of a good way to describe the way that I'm moving forward. And it's nice to kind of be able to break all those rules.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So just a kind of a last question about more with the rhythm. So with your Instagram and your podcast and your website, how have you organized? A lot of people struggle. I see my clients struggle with like making everything fit together without making it super complex, right? So how do you organize? Let's just go with your Instagram, your podcast, your website posts, and with the content on there, and your email list. In terms of the rhythms of when things go out?
Yeah. So right now, everything is based on the podcast. So the podcast episodes are now publishing on Wednesdays. So on the day that that is published, I also make a post on Instagram about the podcast topic. I do stories to tell people about the podcast. And I also send out a newsletter on Wednesday mornings being like, hey, here's this week's podcast episode. And then I'll share some other things kind of in a newsletter format as well. And so like, that's the basic of it. And then each new podcast is also published as a blog post on my website on that day. I'm finally getting caught up with that. Actually, now I've had a co-op student helping me with that, which has been wonderful for the last couple months. And so that's the basics of it. And then other posts that I do or other stories that I do on social media are often a very similar theme to whatever I'm talking about on the podcast. And so what I've been doing for the past 6 months or so is I use the lunar cycle in my business. And so at certain times in the lunar cycle, I do all my brain dumping, my brainstorming. I figure out what are my main topics going to be. Those become the podcasts, and then little subtopics in between become other posts or stories, or maybe some extra emails thrown in. But I found that that's the easiest way to do it, is just to kind of take some time. I do it like for the month that's coming, the lunar cycle that's coming, here's what I want to talk about. And then once all of that's outlined, it becomes much easier to actually stay consistent in creating content, which is something that I used to struggle with a lot.
Yeah. And so you batch create in a way, and then at a different time you schedule everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. And how far advanced, this is always the thing that comes up with me, is like, it's so comforting to have that like abundance of content kind of like scheduled out. But I always struggle personally with like, if it's too far out, sometimes it can feel a little bit stiff. How far out do you just do on the lunar cycle, or sometimes do you do a little further out, or does it depend?
Yeah, usually about like a month's worth of time. And, I'll have all my posts written out, I'll have the document and stuff, but I also allow myself to stay flexible in that if it comes time to make a certain post and I'm not feeling it right at that moment, or some other experience with myself or a client has come up and I feel like it's more important for me to share about that, then I'll leave that original post, as long as it's not like sequenced in a launch or something like that.
Right.
But I'll leave it for another time, and I'll do what I feel is more important to share. And so I often get to the end of a lunar cycle and I'll have a few posts that I never use.
Right.
And so I'll use them later on at another time when it feels better.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Yeah. Cause it's all about that batching and repurposing. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure to always create new content, but especially with social media, the lifespan of our content is, not super long. So I'm always talking to clients about how they can obviously repurpose, but also turn certain posts into blog posts, or, just like it can go both ways, right? So it can either be like the podcast turns into all the things, or the other way around, so that you're not always feeling like everything needs to be new, because a lot of the times we're just talking about the same things over and over. I'm sure with you, it's like you have your methodology, you're just kind of like talking about it from different angles, and new things are coming up, but at the end of the day, it's like it's the same methodology.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Thanks for sharing all that. I'm sure a lot of people found that helpful, inspiring. Just like keep it simple, find a way that works for you. And it sounds really fun. Like I'm also starting, a lot of the inspiration is from you. It's like I'm starting to look at the lunar cycles and how I can incorporate them more into all my content creation. And also just tapping in, being like, well, what do I feel like doing today? Like that this year has been a huge revolution in how I've worked, because I used to just be like, well, you have to work on this today. It's like, well, what do I actually feel like doing today? And so sometimes, like you said, it's just like, I feel like daydreaming and thinking and like allowing that space to like, just give my brain that air to then, come up with great ideas down the line.
Yeah, it's so important, because we can get like that tunnel vision, right? Of just having to do and produce.
Yeah.
But then it just doesn't feel good, and it's just not going to land in the way that you want it to land. And it's okay to take time off. It's okay to like allow yourself that time and space. It can be hard, I think, when we run our own things, to like allow ourselves to do that. But the best ideas come from those times.
Yeah. I always get the best ideas before I go to bed, like right before I'm falling asleep, when I'm in yoga or when I'm showering.
Yeah, the shower is such a good place. I also take long drives. I find that's really helpful too.
Yeah. Yeah. The drives. Yeah, it can help. It's something just allowing your brain to just, I'm sure there's like some scientific term, but like allowing your brain to get into that state where you're not thinking, but you're thinking like,
Exactly.
and I'm sure you've had that experience of like suddenly the timing of some of these ideas. Like I just launched kind of like a new memberships, an SEO membership, and I was stuck on one part of the dynamic of it. And so there was a little bit of pressure because I wanted to launch it in the next week or so, but there was that part that it was like, it wasn't convincing. And then I think it was in yoga, like I was like in the Shavasana, like kind of, and then bam, like the idea just came to me. I was like, I need to do this. And it was like clarity. It was like, yes, that's how it's going to work for these type of clients. This is what they need. This is the rhythm. And it was just like, it made sense. And I was like, I'm so grateful I didn't just pressure myself to launch this thing, and I wasn't convinced, right? So it's almost like giving yourself that structure where it's like, okay, I'm going to go forward. I'm going to do things. Like, I'm not just like, floating in air sort of thing, but I have that space to explore and allow the ideas to come. And it's almost, I'm sure you found like that's a practice, like over time, those ideas, it's almost like you're able to coordinate them a little faster or like more in sync with what you're doing.
Totally. And I use an app that like transcribes, so I can talk into it and then it like writes it out in text. So like if I'm on those drives, or if I'm, doing something where I can't be like, and sometimes your brain works so fast, like talking it out is just so much easier for your ideas than trying to like write it down as your brain is saying it to you. So I like the transcribe app for that. It's been really good. But exactly what you were talking about, like I was originally planning to launch that connection course like this week, start launching it. And then last week, the whole idea and download for the entire ovulation equation program came to me. And I was like, this is going to be a good first step for a certain type of person to then also go into connection potentially after for a deeper dive. So that's like how things are shifting, and it's just like allowing the shift and just rolling with it, because now it makes a whole lot more sense and it feels better.
I love that. Yeah. It's about having a plan, but also creating that flexibility within the plan that makes sense. Cause I think back, like I would force myself to launch things. Again, all of it was fine. Like I was doing the best I could. Right. But now I see like forcing myself to launch something that I'm not 100% on board, it doesn't serve my audience in the best way. And so now it's like, I really get myself to a place where I'm so excited about it. I can't help but like just burst with wanting to tell people about it. And that's where I want to be, like in the barometer, right? And then if I'm not feeling that excitement, it's not like I just like walk away. I just start to look at, where does this have to shift for me to be excited? Or is it just not a good time? Like, am I launching something else and that sort of thing? So,
Exactly.
but yeah, it's getting quiet in those times. It's a practice, right? For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just to wrap up the conversation, what would you say is like one tip? I know we talked about a lot of stuff. So, but like for someone they're maybe like kind of feeling blah about their marketing right now, and they are also health and wellness. I have a lot of health and wellness businesses listen to the podcast because that's what I specialize in with my search marketing services and courses. But for someone who's, they're intuitive and they want to feel good about their marketing and they're just feeling a little bit blah about everything, what would you say would be like one thing to recommend, and something that maybe helped you at that time when you were just like feeling burnt out and not in the best place?
Yeah, absolutely. My advice would really be to do what makes you feel good. Like there's literally no end to the how-to strategy, the step-by-step strategies out there, and it's important to understand them so you can break your own rules. But if what you're doing is leaving you feeling burnt out, exhausted, not in love with your business, not in love with the things that you're offering anymore, or maybe isn't providing the ROI that the coach or the internet or whatever is saying it's going to, then let it go. There's no shame in that. It's okay to like let go of whatever is in your business that you just doesn't feel good, even if it is giving you ROI, but you're still feeling burnt out or exhausted. It's just not worth it, right? It's not worth sacrificing. I'll always take a health aspect, right? It's not worth sacrificing like your mental, physical, and emotional health for it. So just let it go. Allow yourself time and space. More and better ideas will come no matter what, as long as you give yourself that space. So do what makes you feel good.
Yeah, I love that. And I know it at first, because that's also advice that you've worked with in your courses and in your work. At first, it might be hard to be like, well, I don't even know what feels good. But I think, yeah, just starting small, even looking at the areas of the business that you enjoy mostly now, that could be like a good first step too. Or I always like to look at other businesses that I admire and that like I can see that they're having fun, and that's the kind of fun I want to be having. And so I've sometimes actually reverse engineered like marketing. Like I've signed up for someone's email list to see, okay, how often do they email people? How does that work with their posts? How does that work with their blog? And so that can also give you some ideas of like, okay, they seem to be doing it this way. What if I just try a little bit of that and see how it feels?
Yeah, absolutely. Try something on, and if it feels good, then roll with it. And if it doesn't, let it go.
Yes, I'm amazing. Thanks, Robyn. So where can people find you and hang out with you and get to know more about the work you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram is probably my favorite place to connect. I'm the Hormone Diva over there. My website is thehormonediva.com. And then my podcast, the Well Sisters podcast, is available on all listening platforms, and you can definitely have a look there. I love having conversations about after you've listened, what you thought about what I spoke about, and any questions that you have. So feel free to have a listen and then hit me up with a DM on Instagram so we can continue the conversation.
Yes. And Robyn's podcast is amazing, guys. Like I've listened to it. I've listened to it from the beginning, and I've recommended it to anybody who will listen to me. Like you have to listen to this. No, it's great. And like, there's so much skepticism and there's so many voices when it comes to hormone health and diets and stuff. So it's such a sensitive area, and I think the way you approach it is just so different, and it's like there's just no guilt or shame. And anyway, I appreciate that. Like that was a big part of like the value I got from your approach to hormone health. So
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Cynthia.
all right, thanks, Robyn.
Thanks.